Welcome, this is Raphael.
And Catalina.
You are now about to take your next step in the serenity centering journey. Welcome. We have another quote we're going to break down. Catalina, I'll read the quote. Anxiety occurs when there is a gap between my expectations and my will and reality. Catalina, hit us.
Yeah, I mean, I think this quote is really great, obviously, because that's why I picked it. I think it highlights that often where anxiety comes from, because I think anxiety can go under the guise that your life is falling apart, and what it is that your plans are falling apart, but life is actually unfolding exactly like it's supposed to. And so it's that gap between what my expectations are and what I think should happen versus what is happening in reality. And so there's an element of go back to trusting reality, because life knows how to unfold itself. It doesn't need your help. Just like there's an analogy, if you have a rose blooming and you go out and you want the rosebud to bloom faster and you pull at the petals, you're not going to help it bloom any faster. You're going to kill the plant. And so it's kind of like going back to, okay, I'm feeling anxiety. What is going on inside of me? Often for me, it's this case. It's that I am frustrated or irritated or afraid of what might happen because things are happening different than I think they should or wanted them to.
Right. No, that's fantastic. Great opener. For some reason, what popped in my head was the movie Pulp Fiction. And you remember Samuel L. Jackson's character, and there was Yolanda, who is a bank robber. And this movie's been so far out now. It's been such a long time. I don't think I'm spoiling anything. But Yolanda was holding up a restaurant with her partner, who's a male, and I can't remember what his name. They had nicknames for each other that was kind of interesting.
Honey Bunny.
Honey Bunny and something else, right? She was Honey Bunny, or maybe, I don't know. Yeah, they had nicknames, but I know Yolanda was her real name. But at one point, John Travolta's in that movie, and he comes out of the restroom, and she's holding up the place, and he puts a gun to Yolanda. So Yolanda and the boyfriend have all the place in check, the restaurant, and everyone's down on the ground. And I think they're holding a gun to Samuel L. Jackson's head, who's John Travolta's partner. And John Travolta comes out of the bathroom, sees that Yolanda is pointing a gun to his buddy's head, takes his gun, puts it to her head, and they're in this dynamic now, right? This freeze, this catch-22, I guess you could call it. I don't know what the right word for it, but they have a conundrum. How about that? Because all the guns are pointing to each other's heads, and whoever blinks first, there's going to be some gunfire. But Samuel L. Jackson says to Yolanda, because she's freaking out, she's panicking. She's like, if you shoot, my boyfriend, I will shoot everyone. He's like, yep, I get that. He's like, Yolanda, he's like, what is Fonzie? And he's like, and if you remember the old movie Fonzie from Happy Days, and he's like, tell me about Fonzie. What is Fonzie? And she's like, cool. He's like, that's right. Fonzie's cool. And what do I need you to be? Just like Fonzie. Be cool. Chill. He needed her to chill out. And I think for some reason I just thought about that, right? Like in life, we have these desires. We have this something within us where we want happiness. And I think that's a very good thing. But yet the desire to seek it, it can get out of control, where we start to control everything and we want it to go a certain way, or we have a certain limited view, like the forest, not seeing the forest within the trees. We get tunnel visioned by how it must be, and we drive ourselves insane when it deviates a little bit. So there's something about chilling, which would involve getting some peace, I believe, and letting things on one hand happen, right? There's some things can happen to us much better than we think they can happen. And that's just a cool dynamic. So I don't know, that was the first thing that came to my mind, and I'll have much more, obviously, but Catalina?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just for me, it's just kind of a reminder and a guide to kind of help come back to a center. Because I think that our feelings and our emotions teach us things. And so it lets me know that something's out of whack when I'm feeling that anxiety. And again, often it's this case. It's I'm expecting or I'm wanting something to happen that's different from what reality is. And I think the challenge with when that happens is not only is it uncomfortable to feel that anxiety, but it's also I'm depriving myself of any kind of benefit that I could get from the present moment because I'm focusing on what I wanted to happen or what should have happened or whatever's going on in my head instead of just being present in the moment. And, it's that kind of silly saying of, the present is a gift. That's why it's called a present, so to speak. But there's something to that, I think, where there is a lot of gifts in the present moment and it might be different than what you wanted, but it's exactly what you're supposed to have. And so, but again, it's going back to having some level of trust that there is some order to the universe, even though it might not always make sense to us. And I think if anybody can look at their life and see where things have worked out better than they had expected and totally out of what they expected, no thanks to help from them, so to speak, that there are some things in the universe that work out better than what we could have planned if we had the option to plan it out perfectly. So, it's just a nice reminder of that.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I think it's also cool to talk about, I think the spiritual experience, many extremes either way are bad. Matter of fact, St. Thomas Aquinas had a quote, all extremes except love are dangerous. And, when I think about even the spiritual experience, sometimes people get bugged who are on two different extremes. One is, oh yeah, God's just going to come in or your higher power is just going to do all this stuff in your life. Like, oh, isn't that nice? And you just sit back and enjoy the ride. Like if it was only that easy. And then other people have the other extreme where, they do every single thing themselves. So I think the truth is there's a partnership with that higher power, and it's kind of like a dance, and you're learning how to do the dance. And when is that higher power leading? When are you doing your part? And there's a good quote that I like that says, without God I can't, without me God won't. So that higher power is a gentleman or a gentlewoman or gentle and not a codependent and not forceful. They'll cooperate with. And so, I like that. I also like unrealistic expectations, having all these expectations and many of them being unrealistic, it leads to traps. And, another solution is practicing radical acceptance, with reality, with myself, where I'm at. Doesn't mean not having goals, but it means accepting where I'm at today and, what needs to take place. So letting go of that control, that rigidity, that perfectionism that holds us back, remaining flexible, making adjustments, and cooperating with what life is giving us, and sometimes being pleasantly surprised. I know Catalina brought up today the story of Joseph in the Bible, which, here's a guy who's sold into slavery, and I'm pretty sure we talked about him on other podcasts. But, being sold into slavery by your brothers is never a fun thing. I wouldn't recommend it. But it later on let him set up a path that he would have never picked for himself to become Prince of Egypt. So there is a part of that in life. There are curveballs, there are fastballs. There's going to be stuff that catches us by surprise. It's just a part of life. Is life this predictable thing, or is it a mysterious adventure? Right? If you knew when you walked into a movie, that the movie was going to be exactly what it was going to be all about, it's very boring. There needs to be some elements of surprise. There needs to be climax. There needs to be payoffs, et cetera, et cetera. Catalina?
I think that's a wrap.
That's a wrap, baby?
I think so.
You think we hit that?
I think so.
I have a closing prayer. Dear God, help us let go of all unrealistic expectations, rigidity, and perfectionism. Teach us how to be flexible and agile as we make adjustments with you while striving towards our goals. Help us to encourage and affirm ourselves and others with kindness. Amen. Good stuff, Catalina. Peace. Thank you for taking another step in the serenity centering journey. As always, take what you like and leave the rest. Until the next episode, make sure you enjoy each step of the journey. Peace.